All right, I think we're working. I think we're a go. Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov. Great to see so many of you. We continue our journey in Israel this morning in a fascinating place on the coast of Israel that maybe some of you have visited. It has great historical significance. It appears several times in the Gemara, and today we're going to focus on an aspect of this city that sheds light on how we observe mitzvos in the context of a confluence, we could call it a place of meeting of cultures. Let's talk about this. So I want to begin with a description, which I'm going to share on the screen with you. Is absolutely fascinating description of this city. Let's see if it's working. Here we go. So I hope you could see it on the screen now. Can you see it there? The small letters, the Avraham Yari. I'm going to read it for you. Don't worry. Yeah, Glenn, you see it. Great. Thank you. So this is from Avraham Yari, Masaod Eretz Yisrael, the travels of people over the centuries who have traveled to Israel. And what you're looking at in front of you is a description you see here on the bottom. It's the Masa. It is the travel log of Reb Simcha ben Reb Yoshua of Zalozhitz. Some of you are familiar with the fact that the brother-in-law of the Heilige Baal Shem HaKadosh began a movement of Jews up to Eretz Yisrael. So by the end of the 18th century, there were trickles of Jews who were traveling to Israel, Hasidim from Eastern Europe, students of the Balatanya, and that's part of the reason why in Israel you find many shuls that follow the minhagim of the Balatanya. And this was a chassid from, which is not far from Brody in Galicia, who went with his wife in 1764 to travel to Israel. And he's going to give us a description of the city that we're going to be visiting today. We're not going to get into the whole introduction where Yara gives us the background of how he got to Israel and which direction he took. Okay, this is upside down. Let me see if I can switch it on the screen. Someone's chatting here. Page is upside down. Yeah, let me see if I can, let's see. How do I flip it around? There's got to be a way to do this. Hold on. View. How do I do this?
Try that rotate view a couple of times.
Let's see, where does it say?
The very top thing where you clicked on view and then it says rotate view. Yeah. And try do it one more time.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to go down here to the 12th of Tishrei, 1764. I'm going to switch it around again so you can read it with me. Imagine what it took, the way they describe in the beginning, what it took to get there. Vatana Hateva, you see I have the little arrow. I'm going to annotate it as I go. Vatana Hateva, and the Teva rested. This is paraphrasing Noach. B'chodesh Hashvi b'Yud Beis Bo, on the 12th day of the 12th of the 7th month. Vayi kasher shamu anshe Acco. Now you know where we are. Where did they land? They landed at the port of Acco. Eskol Harad Biskin Vayarutzu Bechofzam Bisfinos Katanos Etzlenu. They heard there was a ship docking. They ran out in small boats to meet our ship off the coast of Acco. And they went to take us on the ship to the land. They took us, they grabbed us with our belongings. They took us to the land. I paid for me and my wife 32 faras. I don't know how much that costs, but I assume it's something. I don't know. We got off of the sea. It's like we were born as an embryo, as a fetus from the womb without any damage. Baruch Hashem ki hifli lasos. So now he describes the city we're visiting. Acco. It says in Sefer Shoftim, Asher lo orishis Yoshev Acco. It says in Sefer Shoftim, this is an ancient Canaanite city that the Jews, when they came up to Eretz Yisrael, they didn't settle in it. Yosheves al Chof Hayam. It's sitting on the beach, on the Chof Hayam. Ubaltos v'syantiv. You see where we are, the next arrow. The Baltos v'syantiv in the Mishnayos in Gittin Kosav. The Acco Eretz Yisrael. Acco is part of Israel. Even though the Mishnah, the first part of Maseches Gittin, describes that Acco was part of Chutz La'aretz. So now, if you want to know more about the historical halachic significance of Acco, you look in the Mefarshim, the Rishonim in the beginning of Maseches Gittin, to talk about where Acco was situated relative to the rest of Eretz Yisrael. Nonetheless, he says, the Tosfos Yontif says that Acco is part of Israel, and he says, "V'ra'isi, I saw she'osin Yom Tov rak Yom Echad." They do one day of Yom Tov, like the rest of people in Israel. Nonetheless, v'chol zos. Nonetheless, you see in the underlined suffix Eretz Yisrael, and v'hameis molichin also l'kfar Yatzav. They bring their deceased to Kfar Yatzav to be buried, etc. They need how they have to do it. That's not so important right now. So now you go down a little bit. V'gam Acco nikra kfar. Acco is a small village. Hold on, let's annotate it again. I'm going to go back to the next top of the next column, and he describes what Acco was like. What was Acco like in the 18th century? So he says, Va'ata ze haklal. This is the rule. Kol ba she'ing ba mechachme yeshiva. If it doesn't have to have a yeshiva, even if it's giant, it's a kfar. Ach be'emes hi'ir rocheles. You should know that Acco is a busy city. V'gedola shel socharim aravim. It has Arab merchants. So this is foreshadowing. Even today, I think in the last couple of years, Acco has about 45,000 people in there. 45,000 population, a little more. 2/3 are Jews, 1/3 is Arab. And people come there from all around. He says from Italia, from Italy, from Tsarfas, from France, and from the West. Who are the Jews in the 18th century who are living there? You see the underline here. Vayudim asher shamahem Svardim. They are Svardim. And what are they like? Anashim rachmanim ma'od. They are very compassionate people. Ubale Torah. And they are people of Torah. Achrak ma'atim heim va'aniyim. They're very few and they're poor. Veim la'erech lamed vav balabatim. They are only about 36. There are 36 families. Umisparnasim meleches shmukler. What is shmukler? That's being a smith. V'chute meshi and shmatis. V'apakid shmanogan metzav al tzorcha kol nikra shmo maila nisim. His name is Nisin. Just like he says by the Ashkenazim, we call the guy the Gabbai is Reb Nisan. In Sfaradim, they call him Nisim. Ish tam v'yasher v'nem v'yar v'asher. And all of the money that they send from Golis, from Eretz Yisrael, from Ashkenazim, pull into Eretz Yisrael, bon liyodo, vu sholech l'kol mi shenishtalach lo. And he receives the funds, this Gabbai Nisim, and he disperses the funds. So here you have a Chassidish Yid, this traveler, this pilgrim, Reb Simcha of Zalazich, and he's coming to Israel and he lands in Acco. And who does he meet? He meets the Sfardim, the 36 or so Sephardic families who are living in Acco, in this town on the Chof, on the edge of the water. If we fast forward, we'll find another confluence in Acco. We're now going to look at an article. This article is from BAR, the Biblical Archaeological Review. Can you see it? Let's see. Glenn, you see it? Great. Acco, this is from Walter Zanger. He says, when the urge to go overseas becomes unbearable, but the family budget is low, I guess this was written pre-quarantine times, written in Israel. Lydia, you can tell the kids, great idea for a tiyul. We pick up and go to Acco. It is the easiest, cheapest, and most effective way I know to go to Greece without living Israel. So he talks about how Acco is very Mediterranean. the relationship between the Jews and the Arabs there. But here's the interesting thing. Look at this. Once visited by the likes of St. Francis of Assisi, Marco Polo, and thousands of pilgrims to Jerusalem, the harbor of Acco, which you see opposite, was the last major outpost of the Crusaders in the Holy Land. The cavernous Crusader remains, now underground, are what attract most visitors today. What is in Acco? 2 cities. Underground, for the most part, you see, underground is a city, a whole network of Crusader buildings, fortresses. When the Arabs defeated the Crusaders in 1291, they were determined to make the seacoast unusable. For the Arabs, after all, no good came from the sea, only Crusaders. So after throwing out the Christians, they destroyed as much of the coastal city as they could, in the case of cities as they could, in the case of Acco, by burying its important buildings and harbor facilities in dirt and rubbish. I'm not going to editorialize on that. But this city, Acco, an ancient Canaanite city, had been under Arab control largely from 635 until 1104. Then the Crusaders show up, and the Crusaders, for most of the time, including the period of Richard the Lionhearted, controlled Acco until 1291. So Crusader period is from 1104 till 1291, which is going to be very significant. So I'm thinking to myself, this is interesting. Here too, we have the confluence of 2 peoples in one city. The Crusaders were, so to speak, Ashkenazim. They came from France, from Germany, and the Arabs, Sephardim. That's the background, okay? That brings us to the story that I want to share with you today. A fascinating, incredibly fascinating story. The story is of a drasha. This drasha you can find in this volume, which is the Kisvei HaRamban, the writings of Nachmanides. This drasha, you see the, I don't know if you could see the tiny print on the top. This is the Chevelle edition of the drasha. This drasha starts on page 214 in Chevelle, and it goes till 252. It's like a 40-page drasha. Now, I once got a piece of advice from one of the distinct members of this group when I once spoke in the shul, and one of the distinct members of this group, I'm not going to say who it was, you can figure it out on your own. She said to me, Rabbi, afterwards, that was very good. That drasha was good. A good drasha is like a good carjacking. You get in, you get what you need, and you get out. Now, you can figure out who on this call may have said that, such a thing. I'm not going to ask them to identify themselves, whatever. This drasha must have been, I mean, they must have had very unusual balabatim who were listening to a drasha. It must have been hours and hours. I don't know if it came complete with coffee. The Ramban, oops, I just gave it away. This drasha was given by one of the most important figures in all of Jewish history. One of the most dynamic, brilliant halachicists, that's such a word, halachic authorities, poets, Kabbalists, physicians, mefarshim, commentaries. His name was Ramban. This drasha is called the Drasha LaRosh Hashanah, which we have copies of the Kisvei Yad. The Ramban Nachmanides delivered this drasha. It was likely delivered in 1269. 1269, possibly 1268, but likely 1269. This incredibly long drasha is magnificent. I didn't go through every word of every part of this drasha because it's extremely long and some of it is very technical. But the Ramban, Nachmanides, delivers a drasha to the rabbis and the people of Acco, likely in 1269, before Rosh Hashanah. He gives a first section is about a homily to explain the psukim, the verses dealing with Rosh Hashanah, what it says in the psukim in Parshas Emor. Then he talks about the laws of Tkiyah Shofar. Then at the end, he gives chizuk to the people living in the land of Israel. It is an incredible, incredible drasha by an incredible person. How did the Ramban end up delivering a drasha in Acco? And why are we talking about it today? You see, the Ramban, he was born in Spain. He lived in the northern edge of Spain, in Girona. He was cousin with Rabbeinu Yonah. He was, as many of you know, he was one of the most prominent Sephardic rabbinic authorities of the 13th century and of history. He wrote a commentary on the Chumash, which he finished when he got to Israel, and commentary on the Gemara. And then, very famously, he had a debate with Pablo Cristiani in front of King James of Aragon. And there, the Ramban had what we call the Vikuach, the debate about Judaism versus Christianity. And the Ramban vanquished Pablo Cristiani, but then he wrote his Vikuach, which is also published in the Chevelle edition, his account of what the exchange was like with Pablo Cristiani, and that got him into a lot of hot water. In addition, the Ramban was an ardent lover of Eretz Yisrael, and he decided, he was past 70 years old, that he was going to, because of the controversy and because of his love of Israel, he was going to be exiled. He was going to go to Israel. He's going to go to Eretz Yisrael by boat. He arrives, he writes in a letter, he arrives in Israel in 1267. He was born, let's say, 1194. So this man, he's over 70 years old, traveling alone. He left his family, his children, his community, everything, just to go to Israel. He arrives, he lands in Acco, he travels to Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is desolate because it had been sacked, I believe, by the Mamelukes in 1244. And where does he go and settle? He goes and settles in Acco. And that's where he lives out the rest of his life. He settles in Acco and he delivers a drasha. That itself is amazing. But now, what's amazing on top of amazing is the story, the Maisa that he tells in the middle of the drasha, which I'm going to share with you now. Let's see if I can find it. Where is it? Hold on. I wrote it down. I put it in the thing. Let's see if I can find it. Hold on. He tells a story that he heard. Where is it? No, I can't find it in front of me. So you're going to have to, what I'll do is, it's not here. So I'll read it out to you. All right, you'll trust me that I'm reading it accurately? Fair enough. Okay. So the Ramban tells the following story. Shamati, I heard. Shamati, one second, somebody else is screen sharing. Oh, we're going to get back to there in a second. Okay. Shamati, I heard, says the Ramban. I heard. Mipi Morim, from my teacher, Harav Nosson ben Harav Meir. Rabbi Nosson ben Meir, who we're going to talk about in 1 second. Don't get lost. I heard, says Ramban Nachmanides, from my teacher, Rabbi Nosson ben Meir, Shebetchila, initially, Kisheba Lilmo Torah, when he came to learn Torah, Lifnei Rabbi Yitzchak ben Rabbi Avram, in front of Rabbi Yitzchak ben Avram, known as Ritzba. We'll talk about him in a minute. Taka HaTokea, the Baal Tokea blew, V'asa Daled Shvarim, and he blew 4 sounds, doot, 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 but he didn't stop. Then he went doot for the 4th time. But a shvarim is supposed to be 3. Says the Ramban, Omerlo Rabbi Yitzchak, Chazor Kol HaSimen Ve'aviro. You have to do the whole set of tkiyas again, and he got rid of that Baal Tokea. La'achar HaTfilah, after davening, Omdu HaChaverim, all the friends got around, V'atalmidim, and the students, L'fanav B'chatzar Beis HaKnesset. That's outside of shul. You can imagine, like Rosh Hashanah in the morning, the people are wearing their talesim, they're going home. The rabbi comes out, there's a big hullabaloo, they're looking, Rabbi, what's going on? What happened? How? Tell us. So the Chavim, the Talmidim, they said, Omelo, Mori Rabbeinu, Rabbi, tell us. Lama tzivi salachzer kol hasimen. They said to the rabbi, why did you tell the Baal Tokea that he had to do the whole thing over? Just because he did an extra sound for the shvarim? You have to do it again? Imagine this taking place in real time. In France, the Ritzba was one of the Baalei HaTosfos, one of the rabbinic scholars in France. This was the story that happened. And they went back and forth. Heishiv lo v'amarti, etc. And he gave him the answer. The Ramban says, I heard this story from my Rebbe, Reb Nosson ben Meir, who saw this with his own eyes in front of the Ritzvah in France. And then he goes on to analyze it. Why is this significant? Why am I making such a big tumult about this? I'll tell you why. Because, take a look at this. Now, if we were in shul in person, it would be easier to see. But you're going to have to take my word for it. What I have here is a gigantic map outlining the relationship between various different scholars in the first half of, this is starting about the year 1000 till about the year 1500. And if you look very carefully, you're going to see zillions of little names of rabbis. But what's important here, what I want you to understand is that in this map, which is from Eitz Chaim, there are different geographical areas. It would obviously be easier if we were together in person, but so far, you're still with me? Rick and Sharon, I see you there. You haven't left yet. This section over here is France. This section is Sfarad, is Spain. There is nothing in between. There is no space because the intellectual worlds of the Talmidei Chachamim of France and Spain were separate. They had nothing to do with each other. In the 11th century, Rashi was born in 1040. Rashi didn't have interactions with Spanish Chachamim. And then the Tosafist movement that starts in the 12th century, they didn't have a lot of interaction with the Spanish rabbis. Whereas at the same time, the Rambam and the Ramban, they're starting, the Rambam, the Rif and the Rambam are in Spain, but they're not talking to each other. Where do they meet? Where does the flow of information, the connection really concretize? So we know there were some Chachamim who individually met, but guess what? The Ramban Nachmanides had a Rebbe. If you look, you can't even see it because there's a tiny name here. His name was Reb Nosson ben Meir. He came from a small town called Trinquetai. Reb Nosson ben Meir of Trinquetai was a student of the Ritzvah. The Ritzvah was one of the Balei Tosfos. And because of this link, Ramban, he knew the Spanish tradition from where he grew up, and his Rebbe taught him also the French tradition. He was the connector. He was the point of contact. The Ramban was the primary person to merge the two traditions of Ashkenaz, of Tosfos, and Sfarad, and France, through his Rebbe, Reb Nosson ben Meir of Trinquetai. That's the background. So now it gets even better. You ready for this? There was a very important Balei Tosfos, one of the most important Balei Tosfos ever, who wrote most of the Tosfos that we have on Shas, who came from a town called Sens. So if you're looking on the map here, if you can see it in front of you, this is Paris. You see in the blue? Glenn, can you see the thing? There's Paris. If you look to the right, down here, Troyes, Rashi lived there. If you lived here, Orleans, Rabbi Yaakov of Orleans. If you lived here in Blois, you were in trouble because in 1170 there was a terrible massacre here. But if you lived here in Sens, in Shans, you would have known one of the most important Balei Tosfos, Reb Shimshon of Shans, the Rosh Mishans, one of the great Balei Tosfos, one of the great Talmudists of the Tosfos period. He's living in Sens, but guess what happens? The Rosh Mishans makes Aliyah. He goes, and he wasn't the only of the Balei Tosfos to move to Israel. And where does he move? You won't believe it. He moves, I'm going to show you now. He moves to Acco. The Rosh Mishans, now this I drew for you, I hope you can see it. The Rosh Mishans, you see here on the bottom, Reb Shimshon ben Avram of Shans. Who was his brother? Reb Yitzchak ben Avram, the Ritzvah. The story of the shofar took place with this Reb Yitzchak ben Avram, the Ritzvah, the brother of the famous Balei Tosfos, the Rosh of Shans, who moved to Acco in the beginning of the 13th century. He died, according to some, in 1216 or 1230. So look what's happening here. Acco becomes the place where they come together. The Rosh Mishans, the Reb Shimshon of Sens, and Reb Yitzchak ben Avram, the Ritzbah, were brothers. They were both grandsons of Reb Shimshon of Falaiza, who was the brother of the founder of the brother-in-law of the founder of the Tosfos movement of the Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam's chief disciple, red line means disciple, yellow line means related, was the Reb Yitzchak, the author of most of our Tosfos. Reb Yitzchak, his students were the Rosh Mishans and Reb Yitzchak ben Avram, the Ritzbah. It's all connected now. So now what's happening in 1269? What's happening is the Ramban is showing up in Acco. And who are the rabbis? Who are the students? Who are the Talmidei Chachamim in Acco? The whole community is actually dominated by the influence of the French rabbis, of the Baalei Tosfos. And what does the Ramban bring to the city? He brings the Sephardic tradition. He creates a merger. He creates a spiritual dialogue. In this environment in which the Baalei Tosfos used to hold sway, and their students, there was even a famous Baalei Tosfos, Rabbi Yechiel of Paris, who either made it to Israel or tried to get to Israel. Maybe he made it to Acco. It's through the Ramban that this world, these two worlds, merge. Acco is the place of two worlds. If you look in Shulchan Aruch, in Siman Tuf Kuf Sadi, where they discuss exactly these questions about what if the shofar blower adds a shvarim, has a tkiya that's too long, it's too short. They quote the Ramban. They quote the discussion, the whole issue with the Baalei Tosfos. But the historical background of this is famous, is incredible, it's unbelievable. The same way that the Chassid comes from Europe in the 18th century, and he meets the Sephardim who are living in Acco, and the same way that the Crusaders, the secular Gentile Goyim, come from France and they meet the Arabs, and the city has both. It's two layers. From a halachic historical point, we have the same confluence. The Ramban's drasha is the meeting point of the tradition. In a certain sense, you could say. There's a fascinating article that I came across. I'll share it with you, and with this, we'll conclude. Fascinating article from a guy who did research, and he compared, this is it, here we go. I don't know if you could see it in front of you. This article is called Historical Background to Nachmanides' Acre Sermon for Rosh Hashanah, the Strengthening of the Catalonian Center. What is Catalonia? That's the edge of the Sephardic community. That's the edge of Spain in the north, where the Ramban came from. This is the introduction of Sephardic learning to the Ashkenazi Tosfos community in Acco. The Jewish tradition is coming together. And that is what we live today. If you look in Shulchan Aruch and the development of halacha, we are constantly living a conversation between the Rambam and the Rashi and the Tosfos in France and the Rif in Spain. Where did this conversation happen? Where did the two communities merge? We could see that merger coming to life in this story, in this exchange in Acco. The Ramban says, I heard a story from my Rebbe, Rev Nosson ben Meir of Trinquetai, who saw it from the Ritzbah. The Ritzbah was the Baalei Tosfos, the brother of the Rosh Mishans. It's all family. They're all connected to each other. It's like a modern yeshiva. You know, the father is a Rosh Yeshiva, the son became a Rosh Yeshiva, the son-in-law got a position. A lot of people are related here. These are all tiny suburbs around Paris. All of a sudden, now their Torah in a big way is meeting the Torah of the Sephardim. It's the unification and the synthesis, a place of meeting. So Acco means many things, but today we appreciate that Acco means the meeting place